I watched my sister's face drain of color as Professor Mitchell's voice echoed through the lecture hall. Miss Winters, could you please stay after class? I'd like to discuss your exceptional thesis proposal. Only my name, not hers. Beside me, Cassandra's perfectly manicured nails dug into her designer jeans. Her breathing quickened, panic flashing across those green eyes that had always been Mother's favorite. I kept my expression neutral, even as satisfaction bloomed warm in my chest. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for since I opened my eyes 3 years ago and found myself back in my childhood bedroom, age 15 again, with memories of a life that hadn't happened yet burning in my mind. A life where I'd died at 27, penniless and alone, after my sister had stolen everything from me. Of course, Professor, I said calmly, gathering my books. I didn't look at Cassandra, though I could feel her desperate stare boring into the side of my head. The other students filed out, their chatter filling the hall. Cassandra remained frozen in her seat, her knuckles white. She'd copied my work word for word last night from my laptop. I'd made sure of it, leaving it unlocked in our shared study room at exactly 2 a.m., knowing she'd sneak in, just like she always did. Just like she'd done for years in my previous life, taking credit for my ideas, my research, my late nights of grueling work. But this time, what she'd copied wasn't quite what I'd submitted to Professor Mitchell 3 days earlier. Miss Winters? Professor Mitchell's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Are you coming? I stood, smoothing down my simple cotton dress, so different from Cassandra's expensive outfit, bought with Daddy's money. Money that should have been split between us, but somehow always flowed entirely to his golden child. Yes, Professor, right away. As I walked past Cassandra's seat, she grabbed my wrist. Her whisper was venomous. What did you do? I smiled sweetly and pulled free. I have no idea what you mean. But I did. Oh, I knew exactly what I'd done. The memories of my death were still fresh, even after 3 years of living this second life. Some nights I still woke up gasping, feeling the cold hospital sheets beneath me, hearing the steady beep of machines that had eventually fallen silent. I'd died alone in that charity ward, my body ravaged by stress and malnutrition, unable to afford proper treatment because Cassandra had wiped out my bank accounts in the final betrayal. She'd done it with Mother's blessing, of course. The two of them had always been a team, from the moment Cassandra was born 2 years after me. The pretty one. The charming one. The one who could do no wrong. I was the firstborn, but I might as well have been invisible. It started small, as these things always do. I was 5 when I first noticed that Cassandra got the bigger slice of cake, the nicer toys, the better bedroom. I was 7 when Mother started forgetting my parent-teacher conferences, but never missed one of Cassandra's dance recitals. I was 10 when I realized that my accomplishments, honor roll, spelling bee champion, science fair winner, were met with distracted nods, while Cassandra's mediocre efforts received standing ovations. Father was no better. A successful investment banker, he showered Cassandra with everything money could buy. Designer clothes, the latest technology, a car at 16. I got his cast-offs and hand-me-downs, and when I asked why, he'd shrug and say, "Your sister just needs more, sweetheart. You're the strong one. You understand, don't you?" I understood that I was expected to accept less because I demanded less. I understood that my value was measured not in what I achieved, but in how little I complained about being overlooked. By high school, the pattern was set. Cassandra struggled academically. She was more interested in social media and parties than studying. But she always managed to maintain decent grades. I was too naive to question how, too busy with my own coursework and part-time job at the library to notice that she'd been copying my homework since middle school. College was supposed to be my escape. I'd earned a full academic scholarship to Pemberton University, one of the most prestigious institutions in the country. Finally, I thought I'd be free of the comparisons, the disappointments, the constant reminder that I wasn't the daughter they wanted. But Cassandra applied to Pemberton, too. Her grades were nowhere near good enough, but Father's generous donation to the new science wing opened doors that merit alone could not. And just like that, my escape became another shared space where I'd inevitably be overshadowed. In my previous life, I hadn't realized the extent of her theft until it was too late. I thought she'd just copied homework here and there, annoying, but survivable. I didn't know she'd been systematically stealing my research, my papers, my ideas, and presenting them as her own to key professors and industry contacts. She'd built her entire academic reputation on my work. The truth came out only after she'd secured a coveted position at a top research firm, a position I'd interviewed for and been rejected from. They'd told me my portfolio was remarkably similar to another candidate's, but lacked originality. That other candidate was Cassandra. She'd submitted my research as her own, and when the duplicates were discovered, she'd claimed I was the copycat. Mother and father backed her story without question. I'd been expelled from graduate school for plagiarism. My academic career was destroyed. Every door I'd worked so hard to open slammed shut. I spent the next 5 years fighting to clear my name, working menial jobs to survive, watching from the sidelines as Cassandra's star rose. She published papers, my papers with her name on them. She gave talks at conferences about theories I'd developed. She received awards I'd earned, and then, when I was 26 and finally gathering evidence to prove the truth, to expose her, Mother called with a proposition. Cassandra had made some poor investment decisions and needed money. The family accounts were somewhat tied up. Would I be willing to help? Just temporarily. They'd pay me back with interest. I was tired. So tired of fighting. I wanted, more than anything, for them to see me, to value me, to love me. So I signed over my life savings, the little I'd managed to scrape together, and gave them access to the small trust fund my grandmother had left me. They took everything, every penny. And when I called Mother, desperate and evicted from my apartment, she told me coldly that I should have been smarter with my money, that I'd always been irresponsible, that I needed to learn to stand on my own 2 feet instead of always asking for handouts. I'd never asked them for anything before that day. 6 months later, I collapsed at my third job. The hospital bills piled up. No one visited. No one called. When I died, shivering and alone, my last thought was that I wished I could do it all over again. I wished I could see their betrayal coming and protect myself, and something must have been listening. I woke up on my 15th birthday, 3 years before college, with every memory of my previous life intact. The first thing I did was cry. The second thing I did was start planning. This time, I would not be the victim. This time, I would be 3 steps ahead of every betrayal, every theft, every cruelty. This time, I would make them pay, but I had to be smart about it. I couldn't just confront them. They'd never believe me, never admit fault. I needed proof. I needed witnesses. I needed to let them hang themselves with their own rope. So I spent 3 years playing the same role I'd played before. The quiet, studious daughter, the one who didn't complain, the one who worked hard and asked for nothing. I aced my classes, earned the same scholarship, enrolled at Pemberton. And when Cassandra followed me there just as she had before, I welcomed her with a smile. I'd spent these 3 years preparing for this moment. I knew her patterns, her habits, her weaknesses. I knew she'd been copying my work since freshman year because she had in my previous life. I knew she checked my laptop whenever I left it unattended, that she had no ethical boundaries when it came to maintaining her image of effortless brilliance. So I became predictable. I established patterns. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, I worked in our shared study room in the sorority house. I always left by midnight to get sleep before my early morning class. I always left my laptop on the desk, password unprotected, with my latest assignment open on the screen. For 3 years, she'd copied everything. Homework, essays, lab reports, small stakes. I let her think she was getting away with it, just like before. I even made sure my work was good enough that when she submitted identical assignments, we both received high marks. No red flags, no suspicions. But senior year was different. Senior year was thesis year, and the thesis proposal was everything. It determined your graduate school prospects, your research opportunities, your entire future career. I'd spent months crafting my proposal, a brilliant analysis of machine learning applications in financial fraud detection. It was cutting edge, thoroughly researched, and utterly original. Professor Mitchell, head of the computer science department and the most influential faculty member at Pemberton, would be reading every senior thesis proposal personally. 3 days before the proposal deadline, I submitted my real work directly to Professor Mitchell's email, the one I'd actually written with proper citations, robust methodology, and innovative approaches that built on my independent research. 2 days before the deadline, I created a second version. This one looked nearly identical at first glance. Same title, same general topic, same formatting. But buried in the methodology section were subtle but critical flaws. Uncited sources that looked like plagiarism, statistical models that were impressively described but mathematically impossible, references to datasets that didn't exist, and, most damningly, entire paragraphs lifted from published papers without attribution. It was sloppy. It was obvious. But it was only obvious if you knew what to look for, and Professor Mitchell, who'd spent 30 years in academia and had a notorious reputation for sniffing out academic dishonesty, would absolutely know what to look for. This was the version I left open on my laptop at exactly 2 a.m. last Thursday, right on schedule. I'd hidden a camera in our study room, something I'd learned to do in my previous life when I desperately tried to gather evidence against Cassandra. I watched from my bedroom through my phone as she crept in, saw the open laptop, and spent the next 20 minutes copying my document word for word onto her flash drive. I had video evidence, but I didn't need to show it to anyone. Not yet. The beauty of this plan was that she'd already submitted the corrupted proposal as her own work. Professor Mitchell would see two submissions. Mine, pristine and brilliant, submitted 3 days ago, and hers, submitted yesterday, riddled with plagiarism and fraud. Even if she tried to claim I'd copied her, the timestamps would prove otherwise. And I had the real kicker. I'd kept every draft of my actual proposal, complete with timestamps and revision history showing months of original work. What did Cassandra have? A flash drive with a document created 2 days ago. Professor Mitchell's office was exactly as I remembered it, cramped, cluttered with academic journals, smelling of old coffee and printer toner. He gestured for me to sit in the worn leather chair across from his desk. "Miss Winters, I've been reviewing your thesis proposal," he began, and my heart rate picked up despite my confidence. This was the moment. Everything hinged on this. It's exceptional work, truly outstanding. The originality of your approach to synthetic data generation, the elegance of your algorithmic design. This is graduate-level research. Thank you, Professor. I've been developing these ideas for quite some time. He leaned back, steepling his fingers. Yes, I can see that. I pulled up the research logs from the computer lab. You've been working on preliminary models for this project since sophomore year. I hadn't known he'd do that, but it was perfect. More proof of my long-term investment in this work. I'm impressed, Miss Winters. However, I do need to discuss a concerning matter with you. My stomach clenched, but I kept my face neutral. Your sister submitted a thesis proposal that is remarkably similar to yours. Similar how, Professor? He pulled out 2 printed documents, laying them side by side. Nearly identical in structure and content. But here's where it gets interesting. He pointed to several highlighted sections in Cassandra's document. Her version contains multiple instances of improperly cited sources. Here, for example, she's using text from a 2019 paper by Dr. Rosenberg without attribution. And here, she references a dataset from MIT that doesn't actually exist, I checked. These errors aren't in your submission. I let confusion cross my face. I don't understand. Why would our proposals be similar? Professor Mitchell studied me carefully. That's what I'm trying to determine. Your submission came to me 3 days ago. Hers came yesterday. The timestamp evidence is clear, but I need to understand how she ended up with a corrupted version of your work. This was the tricky part. I couldn't appear too eager to throw Cassandra under the bus, or it might seem like a setup. I needed to seem reluctant, protective even. Professor, I hesitated, playing the role of the loyal sister. I don't like to make accusations. Miss Winters, academic integrity is not negotiable at this institution. If you have information, I need to hear it. I took a breath. Cassandra and I share a study space at our sorority house. I've noticed sometimes that when I leave my workout, things seem to be moved when I come back, but I never thought. I trailed off, letting the implication hang. Has your sister copied your work before? I've suspected it, but I could never prove it. And she's my sister, Professor. I didn't want to believe it. He nodded slowly. I see. Miss Winters, I'm going to be frank with you. This isn't the first time I've had concerns about your sister's work. Two other professors have noted inconsistencies between her in-class performance and her submitted assignments. One suspected she had outside help but couldn't prove it. This was news to me, different from my previous timeline. Maybe other professors had been more observant this time around, or maybe I just hadn't known about their suspicions before. What happens now? I asked. Now I'm going to have a conversation with your sister. I'm also going to recommend a formal academic integrity investigation. If she's been submitting your work as her own, that's grounds for expulsion. Expulsion. The word hung in the air, heavy and final. In my previous life, I'd been the one expelled while she soared. The poetic justice was almost overwhelming. Professor, I don't want to ruin her life. He gave me a sympathetic look. Miss Winters, if your sister has been stealing your work, she's the one who's ruined her own prospects. You've done nothing wrong. In fact, your integrity in this situation, your reluctance to immediately accuse her, speaks volumes about your character. I ducked my head, playing modest. I just want to do good work, sir. And you have exceptional work. I'd like to recommend you for early admission to our graduate program if you're interested. Full fellowship, research assistantship under my supervision. Your thesis proposal shows exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need. My chest tightened with genuine emotion. In my previous life, I'd dreamed of this exact offer. I'd been qualified, more than qualified, but I'd never received it because Cassandra's theft had tainted my reputation. I would be honored, Professor. Excellent. I'll start the paperwork. In the meantime, I strongly suggest you secure your work. Password protect everything. Keep your research private. And, Miss Winters? He leaned forward. Don't let family loyalty compromise your future. You've earned everything you've achieved. Don't let anyone take that from you. If only he knew how literally I was taking his advice. I left Professor Mitchell's office and found Cassandra waiting in the hallway, her face a mask of barely controlled panic. Several other students milled about, waiting for their own meetings, but she pulled me aside anyway. What did he say? She hissed. What did you tell him? He wanted to discuss my thesis proposal, I said calmly. He thinks it's very strong. Did he mention mine? I looked at her. Really looked at her. The designer handbag, the expensive highlights, the perfect makeup. All of it bought with father's money, while I wore thrifted clothes and did my own hair. The resentment from my previous life surged up, but I pushed it down. Not yet. Stay calm. Stay in character. Why would he mention yours? I asked innocently. Don't play stupid, Lily. I know you did something. That document you left out. What document? I interrupted. You mean my thesis proposal that I was working on? She flinched, realizing she'd just admitted to seeing my work. I happened to see it when I was in the study room. Did you read it? No, I might have glanced at it, but Miss Cassandra Winters. Professor Mitchell's voice cut through the hallway. He stood in his doorway, his expression stern. I'm ready for you now. Cassandra's face went white. She looked at me, desperate, but I just gave her a small, encouraging smile. Good luck, Cass. I'm sure it will be fine. I walked away, leaving her to face the consequences of her own actions. Behind me, I heard Professor Mitchell's door close with a definitive click. The investigation moved quickly. Within a week, the Academic Integrity Committee had convened, reviewed the evidence, and reached their conclusion. The timestamps were damning, my submission 3 days before hers, with metadata showing months of prior work. My research logs from the computer lab showing hundreds of hours of development, the plagiarism detection software that lit up Cassandra's proposal like a Christmas tree while clearing mine entirely. But the final nail in the coffin was something I hadn't anticipated. Professor Chen from the English department came forward with evidence that Cassandra had submitted an essay last semester that was suspiciously similar to one I'd written for a different class. He'd noted it at the time but hadn't pursued it because we were sisters and he'd assumed we'd simply discuss the topic together. Now, in light of the thesis situation, he was reconsidering his leniency. Cassandra tried to fight it. She claimed I'd copied her, that I was jealous of her success, that she was the real victim. She brought mother and father to the hearing, both of them dressed impeccably, both of them ready to throw money at the problem. I sat quietly in the hearing room, watching the committee review the evidence. I'd been asked to testify, and I did so calmly, factually, without embellishment. I showed them my research logs. I walked them through my development process. I demonstrated my understanding of the work in a way Cassandra couldn't possibly fake. When it was Cassandra's turn, she crumbled. She couldn't explain the methodology. She couldn't discuss the theoretical foundations. She couldn't even define basic terms from her own supposed proposal. It was painfully obvious she'd never done the work. Father tried to intervene, offering to fund a new scholarship program if they'd reconsider. The committee chair, Dean Morrison, a steel-haired woman with 30 years in academia, shut him down immediately. "Mr. Winters, we are not for sale. Your daughter has violated the most fundamental principles of academic integrity. No amount of money will change that." Mother's face twisted with rage, but she kept quiet. For once, their money and influence couldn't protect Cassandra from the consequences of her actions. The committee voted unanimously. Cassandra Winters was expelled from Pemberton University, effective immediately. All of her credits from the past semester were invalidated, and a notation of academic dishonesty would be placed permanently on her transcript. She burst into tears, dramatic and loud, expecting sympathy. But the room remained silent. Justice, it seemed, was unmoved by performance. As we left the hearing room, Mother grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "You did this," she spat. "You sabotaged your own sister?" I looked at her calmly, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. "I did my own work. She stole it. That's not sabotage, Mother. That's called facing consequences." "You've always been jealous of her." "No," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "I've always been better than her. I just finally stopped letting you pretend otherwise." Father stepped between us, his face red. "Lily, how can you be so cruel? She's your sister. She made a mistake." "A mistake?" I laughed, the sound bitter. "She's been stealing my work for years. This wasn't a one-time error in judgment. This was systematic, calculated theft. And both of you enabled it because you've always valued her more than me." "That's not true," Mother said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it? When was the last time you came to one of my academic awards ceremonies? When was the last time you asked about my research? When have you ever been proud of me?" The words poured out, 3 years of first-life resentment mixed with this life's careful planning. "You gave Cassandra everything: money, attention, love, and you gave me nothing. So she never learned to work for anything. You destroyed her by spoiling her, and you destroyed me by neglecting me. The difference is, I survived, I thrived, and she didn't. If you don't apologize and fix this, you're out of this family," Father said, his voice cold. I smiled. In my previous life, this threat would have devastated me. Now it was liberation. "Good," I said simply. "I don't need a family that only values me when I'm useful to you. I have a full graduate fellowship, Professor Mitchell's mentorship, and a career built on my own merit. What do you have? A daughter who can't think for herself and a reputation for raising a cheater." I walked away from them, from Cassandra's sobs, from the wreckage of their golden child's future. I felt lighter than I had in years, in 2 lifetimes. The fallout continued over the following weeks. Cassandra moved back home, her dreams of graduating from Pemberton destroyed. Her friends, the ones who'd valued her for her family's money and her seemingly effortless academic success, melted away. Social media, which she'd always dominated, turned on her. Someone leaked the details of her expulsion, and suddenly everyone knew she was a fraud. I should have felt guilty. The sister I'd grown up with, the one I'd shared a home with, was suffering. But every time I felt a twinge of sympathy, I remembered dying alone in that hospital, penniless and broken because she'd stolen everything from me. This wasn't cruelty, this was justice. Mother tried to control the narrative, spinning stories about misunderstandings and competitive sisters. But the evidence was too clear, too public. People knew the truth. Cassandra had cheated, and I'd been the victim. Father's donation to Pemberton suddenly became embarrassing rather than prestigious. The university quietly returned the money, not wanting to be associated with a family that had produced an academic fraud. His business associates started asking questions about his judgment, his integrity. If he'd raised a cheater, could he be trusted in business? I watched it all unfold with detached satisfaction, focusing on my own work. My thesis proposal had been approved enthusiastically, and I'd already started my research. Professor Mitchell introduced me to colleagues, to industry contacts, to opportunities I'd only dreamed of in my previous life. But I wasn't done yet. The academic betrayal was just the first act. There was still the matter of the money, the inheritance grandmother had left me, the savings they'd stolen, the lifetime of financial manipulation. In my previous life, I'd learned too late about the trust fund grandmother had set up for me. She'd died when I was 16, and her will had specified that I'd receive $200,000 on my 21st birthday, enough to pay for graduate school, to start a life, to be independent. Except I'd never received it. Mother had been the executor of the estate, and she'd managed the money for me, claiming it was invested for better returns. By the time I'd asked about it at 21, she'd told me it was gone. Bad investments, market downturn, nothing to be done. I'd believed her because I'd wanted to believe her. Because I'd thought mothers didn't steal from their children. In this life, grandmother had died last year, right on schedule. The will had been read, the trust fund established, but I'd kept quiet about it, pretending I didn't know, playing dumb whenever mother mentioned managing my finances. I'd turned 21 3 months ago. The money should have been transferred to me. It wasn't. Instead, mother had forged my signature. I'd found the paperwork while accidentally snooping through her office during a family dinner, and transferred the funds to an account she controlled. She thought she'd gotten away with it, just like last time. She was wrong. I'd been documenting everything. Copies of the original will, the trust documents, the forged signatures. I'd taken photos, made recordings, gathered evidence, and I'd consulted with a lawyer, a good one, not the family's corporate attorneys who'd look the other way. The lawyer, Miss Patricia Chen, was a specialist in estate fraud and financial elder abuse. She'd taken one look at my evidence and smiled grimly. "This is cut and dry," she'd said. "Your mother committed forgery, embezzlement, and breach of fiduciary duty. We can not only recover your money, but pursue criminal charges if you want." Criminal charges. The thought was intoxicating. "Let's start with recovering the funds," I said. "We can discuss criminal charges once I have my money back." Miss Chen nodded. "Smart. Hit them where it hurts first, the wallet, then decide if you want to twist the knife." We filed the lawsuit 2 weeks after Cassandra's expulsion, timing it perfectly for maximum impact. The family was already reeling, their reputation damaged. Now this. A lawsuit from their own daughter, accusing the matriarch of theft. The legal papers were delivered to mother at her country club, during her weekly bridge game with her society friends. I'd made sure of that timing too. Let her be humiliated publicly, the way I'd been humiliated my entire life. Father called me that night, furious. "How dare you sue your own mother after everything we've done for you?" "Everything you've done for me?" I laughed. "You mean the nothing? The hand-me-downs, the forgotten birthdays, the constant favoritism toward Cassandra? Or are you referring to the part where mother stole my inheritance?" "She didn't steal anything. That money was being invested." "Then show me the investment records. Show me where my $200,000 went. Show me the returns. Show me anything that proves it wasn't transferred directly into her personal account to cover Cassandra's shopping habits." Silence on the other end of the line. "You can't, can you? Because she took it. She forged my signature and stole from her own daughter. And you probably knew about it." "That money was family money." "No, Father. That money was my money. Grandmother left it to me specifically, not to the family, not to you, not to mother, to me. And if you try to fight this, I have enough evidence to put mother in prison for fraud." More silence. Then, "What do you want?" "Every penny, plus interest, plus compensation for emotional distress, plus an admission of what she did. I want her to admit publicly that she stole from me." "She'll never do that." "Then I'll see her in court. And Father, when this goes public, and it will go public, ask yourself how your business will handle having a wife who steals from her own children. Ask yourself how the board will feel about your judgment. Ask yourself if protecting mother is worth losing everything." I hung up before he could respond. The lawsuit progressed quickly. Mother's lawyers tried to argue that the trust money had been used for family expenses, and my upbringing, but my lawyer demolished that defense. The trust had been established after I turned 18, when I was legally an adult. Any expenses for my upbringing should have been covered by my parents, not by my inheritance. And the forensic accountants we'd hired traced every dollar, to Cassandra's designer wardrobe, to Mother's luxury vacations, to a new Mercedes neither of them needed. Not a single penny had gone toward anything for me. The evidence was damning. Mother's forged signature wasn't even a good forgery. She'd clearly never practiced, assuming she'd never be caught. The dates didn't match up. The witnesses she'd listed on the transfer documents didn't exist. It was amateur hour, and the judge was not amused. "Mrs. Winters," Judge Hartley said during one hearing, her voice dripping with disdain, "you have violated every principle of fiduciary duty. You were entrusted with your daughter's inheritance, and you spent it like a personal piggy bank. This is not a gray area. This is theft." Mother's face crumpled, but she still tried to play the victim. "Your Honor, I was just trying to provide for my family." "By stealing from one daughter to spoil another?" The judge cut her off. "I've reviewed the financial records, Mrs. Winters. Your family was not struggling. Your husband earned substantial income. You had no need to take your daughter's inheritance. You took it because you could, because you thought she wouldn't fight back." The judge ruled in my favor on every count. The full $200,000 plus 3 years of compound interest, plus $50,000 in emotional distress damages, plus all of my legal fees. Total recovery, nearly $300,000. But more important than the money was the public record. The judgment was a matter of public record, searchable by anyone. Mother's theft was now documented fact, not just family drama. Her reputation, built carefully over decades of society luncheons and charity galas, was destroyed. The country club quietly asked her to resign her membership. Her friends stopped returning calls. The women who'd once envied her perfect life now gossiped about her behind her back. She'd become everything she'd always feared, a cautionary tale. Father's business suffered too. 3 board members resigned, citing concerns about judgment and ethics. Several major clients moved their accounts to competitors. The Winters name, once synonymous with success and prestige, became associated with fraud and family dysfunction. And Cassandra? Cassandra descended further into disgrace. Without Pemberton's credentials, without her stolen academic reputation, she couldn't get into any reputable graduate program. She applied to jobs, but background checks revealed her expulsion. No company wanted to hire someone with academic dishonesty on their permanent record. She tried to reinvent herself on social media, but the internet has a long memory. Every time she posted, people would comment with reminders of her fraud. She couldn't escape it. 3 months after the lawsuit settled, I saw her at a coffee shop near campus. She looked terrible. Unwashed hair, wrinkled clothes, dark circles under her eyes. She was with a small group of people I didn't recognize, probably new friends who didn't know her history yet. She saw me at the same moment I saw her. For a second, we just stared at each other. Then she stood up and walked over to my table. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I considered saying no, just turning back to my research and ignoring her. But curiosity won out. "Sure." She sat down across from me, fidgeting with her cup. "I wanted to apologize." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you?" "I know you don't believe me, but I'm sorry for copying your work, for taking advantage of you, for everything." "Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught?" She flinched. "Both, I guess. I know that's not what you want to hear, but it's the truth. I got used to taking shortcuts, to having things easy. And you made it so easy, always leaving your work out, never complaining when I— Are you seriously blaming me for your theft?" I interrupted, my voice sharp. "No, that's not what I meant. She took a breath. "I was raised to think I deserved everything, that I was special. Mom and Dad treated you like you were less important, and I believed them. I thought it was okay to take from you because they did. That's not an excuse." "I know, I'm not trying to excuse it. I'm just trying to explain." She looked down at her hands. "My life is ruined, Lily. I can't get into school. I can't get a job. Everyone knows what I did. I lost everything." "Good," I said simply. She looked up, shocked. "What? You heard me?" "Good. You deserve to lose everything because you didn't earn any of it. Every success you had was stolen from me. Every opportunity you got was because mom and dad bought it for you. You've never achieved anything on your own merit. That's not true. Name one thing. One single thing you accomplished through your own work, your own effort, your own talent. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Silence stretched between us. You can't, can you? I continued. Because there is nothing. You're not special, Cassandra. You're not talented. You're not brilliant. You're just a spoiled, lazy thief who finally got caught. Tears streamed down her face, but I felt no pity. This was the girl who destroyed my life once before. This was the woman who'd stolen my research, my money, my future. She'd let me die alone and penniless in my previous life, and she'd never lost a moment of sleep over it. I hope you suffer every day for what you did, I said quietly. I hope you wake up every morning and remember that you could have had everything, a degree, a career, a future, if you'd just been willing to do your own work. I hope the weight of your own mediocrity crushes you. I stood up, gathering my things. And Cassandra, don't ever contact me again. We're not sisters. We're not family. We're nothing to each other. I walked away, leaving her sobbing in the coffee shop. I should have felt guilty. I should have felt something. But all I felt was cold satisfaction. Justice, it turned out, was just as sweet as I'd imagined. The next 2 years passed in a blur of success. I completed my thesis with honors, earning recognition from the department and interest from several top research firms. My work on machine learning fraud detection was published in 2 prestigious journals, and I presented at conferences around the world. Professor Mitchell became not just my advisor, but my mentor, introducing me to everyone who mattered in the field. He guided my career with genuine investment in my success, something I'd never experienced from my parents. The graduate fellowship covered my expenses, and the settlement from mother's theft gave me financial security for the first time in either life. I moved into my own apartment, nothing fancy but mine, paid for with my own money earned through my own work. I made real friends, people who valued me for my mind and my character, rather than my family name or connections. I dated occasionally, though I kept most people at arm's length. Trust didn't come easily when you'd been betrayed in 2 lifetimes, but I was happy. Genuinely, truly happy in a way I'd never been before. Mother and father tried to reconcile several times. Father called periodically, suggesting we put this ugliness behind us and be a family again. Mother sent emails, cards, letters, all of which I deleted or threw away unread. They'd made their choices. They'd chosen Cassandra over me, money over integrity, appearances over truth. They could live with those choices. Cassandra disappeared from social media entirely. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd moved to a different city, changed her name, tried to start over. I hoped she failed. Not because I was cruel, but because people like her, people who took shortcuts, who stole and lied and cheated, didn't deserve success. As for me, I graduated with my master's degree and immediately received multiple job offers. The most lucrative came from Sentinel Analytics, one of the top firms in financial fraud detection. They'd read my thesis, been impressed by my research, and wanted me to lead a new team developing next-generation detection algorithms. The salary was 6 figures. The benefits were incredible. The opportunity was everything I dreamed of in my previous life. I accepted immediately. 5 years after Cassandra's expulsion, I was thriving. I'd been promoted twice at Sentinel, now managing a team of 12 engineers. My work had directly resulted in the detection and prevention of over $500 million in fraud. I'd been interviewed by industry publications, invited to speak at congressional hearings on financial crime, recognized as one of the top young innovators in my field. I bought a house, a real house, with a garden and a home office and enough space to breathe. I traveled for pleasure, not just for work. I had hobbies, friends, a life built entirely on my own terms. One evening, I received an email from an unknown address. The subject line read, "I need to talk to you." Against my better judgment, I opened it. "Lily, this is Cassandra. I know you told me never to contact you, and I'm sorry for violating that, but I'm getting married next month, and I wanted you to know his name is David, and he's kind and patient, and he knows everything about my past. He loves me anyway. We're not having a big wedding, just something small, just us and a few friends. I don't expect you to come. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better. I got my GED. I'm taking community college classes. I'm working as a barista, and it's humbling, but I'm learning to be okay with being ordinary. I'm learning that I don't have to be special or brilliant or better than everyone else. I just have to be honest and kind and hardworking. I'm trying to be the kind of person who deserves good things instead of someone who takes them from others. I hope you're happy, Lily. I hope you have everything you deserve, and I really am sorry for stealing from you, for stealing your whole life. I understand if you hate me. I hate what I did too. Love, Cassandra. I read the email 3 times. Part of me wanted to delete it, to maintain my righteous anger, to never give her the satisfaction of acknowledgement. But another part, a smaller, quieter part, recognized something in her words that I'd never heard before. Genuine remorse. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She wasn't making excuses. She was simply telling me she was trying to be better. I thought about responding with cruelty, with a reminder of everything she'd done wrong. But what would that accomplish? She was already living with the consequences. She'd lost her education, her reputation, her family's money. She was working a minimum wage job and taking community college classes, a life so far beneath what she'd once thought she deserved. She'd been humbled, thoroughly, completely humbled. And she was trying to rebuild, honestly this time. I closed the email without responding. Not because I forgave her. Forgiveness would take more than an email, but because I no longer needed her to suffer for me to be happy. My success wasn't dependent on her failure. My happiness wasn't built on her misery. I'd won. Completely, utterly, definitively won. I had the career, the reputation, the life I deserved. What she did with her own life no longer mattered to me. A year later, I received an unexpected call from Father. We hadn't spoken in years, and I nearly declined the call, but curiosity got the better of me. "Lily," he said, his voice older than I remembered, tired. "I know I have no right to call you, but I wanted you to know that your mother is ill. Cancer, stage 4. The doctors say she has maybe 6 months." I felt nothing. No surge of sympathy, no desire to rush to her bedside. Just empty acknowledgement of a fact. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said neutrally. "She wants to see you, to talk to you, to apologize." She had years to apologize. She chose not to. She was proud. She didn't know how to admit she was wrong. But she knows now. She wants to make things right before... He trailed off. "Before she dies?" I finished. "That's convenient timing." "Lily, please, I know we failed you. I know we hurt you, but she's your mother. Don't you want closure?" "I have closure, Father. I closed the door on our family years ago. I'm not interested in reopening it now just because she's finally facing consequences she can't buy her way out of. She's dying. We're all dying," I interrupted. "Some of us just get more notice than others. She has 6 months to reflect on her choices. That's more time than she gave me when she stole my inheritance and left me with nothing. That's more compassion than she showed when she enabled Cassandra to destroy my academic career. She made her choices. Now she gets to die with them." "How can you be so cold?" His voice broke. "You taught me to be," I said simply. "You taught me that love is conditional, that worth is measured in utility, that family only matters when it's convenient. I learned those lessons well. Congratulations." I hung up. Father called back several times over the following weeks. I never answered. Mother sent a letter, handwritten and shaky, begging for a chance to apologize in person. I put it through the shredder without reading past the first paragraph. Some people might call me heartless. They might say I should have given her a chance, that everyone deserves forgiveness, that I'd regret not saying goodbye. But those people had never died alone in a charity ward, abandoned by the family who should have loved them. Those people had never spent years having their worth measured against an undeserving sibling and found wanting. Those people had never been systematically robbed, gaslit, and betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect them. I owed Mother nothing, not my time, not my compassion, not my forgiveness. She'd spent my entire life showing me that I didn't matter. Now I was returning the favor. Mother died 4 months later. Father called to tell me about the funeral. I thanked him for the information and declined to attend. Cassandra sent another email, this one expressing sadness about Mother's death and hoping we could use the tragedy to reconnect as sisters. I deleted it without responding. The will reading happened without me. Father tried to contest my absence, but the lawyers informed him that I'd already received what was legally mine, the trust fund, with interest and damages. Anything else in Mother's estate was between him and Cassandra. I later heard through former family friends that Mother had left everything to Cassandra, writing in her will that her youngest daughter had suffered enough and deserved support. The irony was almost laughable. Even in death, Mother couldn't admit that Cassandra's suffering was self-inflicted, earned through her own actions. But it didn't matter. I didn't need their money. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need anything from them. I'd built a life, a real life, on my own merit. And it was better than anything they could have given me. 10 years after my rebirth, I stood in the auditorium at Pemberton University delivering the commencement address. Professor Mitchell had retired the year before, recommending me for his endowed professorship. At 32, I was one of the youngest full professors in the university's history. I looked out at the sea of graduating faces, young, hopeful, ready to change the world. I'd been asked to share wisdom, to inspire them. The path to success, I began, is not always straightforward. You'll face obstacles, setbacks, people who doubt you or actively work against you. Some of those people will be strangers. Some will be competitors, and some, unfortunately, will be people you love. When I was a student here, I learned that hard work isn't always enough. Talent isn't always enough. Sometimes people will try to take credit for your achievements. Sometimes they'll try to steal your opportunities. Sometimes they'll betray you in ways you never imagined possible. But here's what I learned. Your worth is not determined by how others treat you. Your value is not diminished when someone steals from you. Your success is not dependent on anyone else's failure or approval. Build your life on merit. Document your work. Protect yourself. Trust but verify. And never, ever let family loyalty or social pressure convince you to accept less than you deserve. Some of you will be betrayed by people you trusted. It will hurt. It will make you question everything. But here's the secret. Betrayal can be a gift. It shows you who people really are. It forces you to stand on your own. It teaches you that the only person you can truly rely on is yourself. And when you succeed, when you build something real, something earned through your own effort, that success will be unshakable. No one can take it from you because no one gave it to you. You earned it. So be kind, but be cautious. Be generous, but protect yourself. Be forgiving, but never forget. And above all, know your worth. Don't let anyone, not family, not friends, not society, convince you that you deserve less than you've earned. You are the architects of your own lives. Build wisely, build honestly, and build something worthy of your potential. The applause was thunderous. Students stood, faces shining with inspiration. Faculty members nodded approvingly. This was my legacy. Not just my research or my publications, but the students I could inspire to value themselves, to protect themselves, to build lives of integrity and merit. After the ceremony, I walked across campus, taking in the familiar sights. So much had happened here. So much had changed. I'd arrived as a frightened girl with memories of death and betrayal, desperate for a second chance. I was leaving as a woman who'd built a life worth living. My phone buzzed, an email from a colleague at MIT offering me a position leading their new ethics and AI program, another opportunity, another adventure. I smiled and started typing my response. The past was dead and buried, both versions of it. The future stretched out before me, full of possibility and promise. I'd been given a second chance at life, and I'd used it to build something real, something earned, something mine. And this time, no one could take it away.